If you are listening to this podcast, it means you're searching for someone who understands you, someone who gets you. You are yearning to be understood and to belong. Welcome to the Someone Gets Me podcast, where we help smart, talented, and sensitive people navigate an often insensitive world. I am Dianne A, your host. My roles as ambassador, author, speaker, and intuitive mentor for bright and talented people are woven into each episode. I have the experience and knowledge to educate and inspire, as I have been there and I understand your unique intensities, sensitivities, and challenges. Welcome. Care for the Neurodivergent Soul Part One. Hi friends, and welcome to Someone Gets Me, and it's Dianne today here talking to you about self-care and caring for a neurodivergent soul, the emotions, the mind, the feelings, the essence of a neurodivergent person, both in the workplace and at home and in social situations. And so this episode, as I started really pondering it and outlining the things I wanted to share with you, I realized it's really 2 episodes. So we're going to do part of it today, and I'm going to touch on a lot of ideas. And then next week, you will hear some things that dive much deeper into this idea. See, I work with executive leaders and people leading teams that have neurodivergent people in them, or maybe neurodivergent themselves. So whether you identify as neurodivergent or not, this will be very helpful because chances are you know somebody who is. And my idea of neurodivergent really is a lot about ADHD, as people label it, and all the different ways we process the world. And neurodivergent people process the world and are motivated by different things than the average bear, so to speak. And I remember I was clinical director of a treatment program quite some time ago, of a substance abuse treatment program. And gosh, this is over 20 years ago now. I'm feeling old. And the owner came to me and said, I'll pay you a bonus of $1,000 if you blah, blah, blah. Well, I just looked at him and very matter-of-factly said, well, I'm not motivated by money. And he looked at me all confused. Now, at the time, it just kind of came out of my mouth, but it was a truth about me. I'm not motivated by consequences or money in the same way others are. My empathic self, my neurodivergent self, is motivated by things that are quite different. And so there are areas of life that we operate differently. So if you're an executive leader and you're working with people, or you have people either on your team or in any relationship with you who are neurodivergent, or you are yourself, your motivations are going to be different than other people who are not. Now, I'm not implying anything is better or worse or less than or more than or any of those things. What I am saying is that difference, the obvious different way that people see things and experience a world, can be used in our favor when we are paying attention. So the things that will motivate you if you're neurodivergent. So if you're wondering if you are, here are the motivating factors, like the overarching things that motivate us. First of all is passion. If it's not something that I'm passionate about, it's tricky to get me going. If I'm passionate about the project, nobody can get in my way. So when you're leading a team, especially in a corporate world, if you have somebody on your team who's really passionate about something and they're going with it, then you may want to let them lead on that. If something's boring and the person's taking a while to get it done, then you can understand that they're not motivated properly, because passion is so important to neurodivergent people. So the old adage of just, suck it up and do it and all that kind of stuff doesn't work real well for people who have a different way of doing the world. And then the second thing is urgency. And I kind of laugh about this because I am the queen of urgency. And I know so many of the people I work with are, where if you give us a deadline of midnight, then it'll be done at 11:59 and it'll be done well. And so when there's that stress or that way of having to do it, a time frame that forces a sense of urgency, a neurodivergent person will thrive in that. So I remember when I was in seminary and I was writing my thesis, and the dean said, "We'll get it done whenever you want to." You know, I'm like, "Oh, don't say that. Don't say that to me at all, because there's no sense of urgency. Then it will never get done." And that's when Parkinson's law takes over, right? Which is the amount of work expands to the amount of time allotted. And so urgency is important to neurodivergent people. So it matters if there's a scaffolding, a structure, especially in a work or even home environment, that things have to be done in a certain time in a certain way. In fact, I'm known to kind of create urgency for myself in order to keep things moving in my home world, in my work world, and even with some of my friendships. Like, let's have plans. Let's have a thing that has to happen by a certain time. And we're famous for getting it done by then, even when we or someone else might think we can't. The third thing that lets us know we're wired differently is a sense of challenge. I love a new challenge. You neurodivergent people listening to me, you love a challenge. Give you a challenge, whether it's something you have to think through or process or create or engage with. If it's challenging, it's attractive. If it's boring, it's not attractive. Now, that's all by the individual person's perception. Like, what's challenging to me may not be challenging to another neurodivergent person. And so it's very unique to us. So when you're leading a team, or you're in a family, or you're in a group of friends, different things will challenge different people and motivate different neurodivergent people to do things. So it truly is a commonality that expresses very differently. So we're not just talking about the mind here. We're talking about the emotions and the soul of the person, how these ideas actually are experienced. So we're wired differently, but we also experience the world differently. I often say it's like some people are watching like a 1-inch black and white little battery TV, and we're in a 3D Dolby surround sound. And we're watching the same movie, but the experience is totally different. So pay attention if you have neurodivergent people around you. It's just not a label. It's just not a thing about mental difference. The soul and emotions of a person who are neurodivergent have different sensitivities and requirements for happiness and health. The fourth thing is novelty. We like to have things new and different and creative. Like, that's why a neurodivergent person will start a project or get involved in a craft or an activity and buy all the things and get totally in it, go down the rabbit hole, learn as much as they can. And then oftentimes they'll say, okay, learned that, did that, done, next thing, novelty. So a lot of neurodivergent people will be great on your team to get things going and create the thing. But if you want to have them maintain things and it turns into something that feels boring, they're not the person to keep it going. So like, I'm known for creating programs and creating things for people, other people, to eventually take over and continue. I can continue it, but it's not the most fun for me. So if you're one of those people who loves to create the new thing and it feels really good for you to let other people kind of take the ball and run with it, then you need to make sure that the people around you, especially at work and in school and at home, understand that that novelty is important to you. And once things get boring or too repetitious, things can feel a little wonky. And the fifth thing is it has to be interesting. And I talked about this in other episodes before when I've talked about transition, where a gifted person will have struggle with transition from something that's interesting to them when they're transitioning to something that's not interesting to them. Well, the same thing is that this interest is what holds a neurodivergent person's attention. It's what holds them into the project. I've worked in many situations in my world where the interest was there for a bit, and then the interest went away for various reasons, in different times in my life. And it was very difficult to stay focused on the project or the team, whatever the work was. So interest matters. Neurodivergent people are motivated by something that interests them. So if you're in in a team setting and you're the manager and you're just assigning people things without paying attention to what interests somebody and what challenges them and what's passionate for them, then you might be assigning the tasks to the different members that don't align with how they're hardwired. So a good leader will pay attention to how his team or her team is wired, all the people on the team, how they're wired, and then either assign or allow people to choose what they're doing based on these 5 things: what interests them, what's new for them or has a novel idea, a novel presence and keeps them going, and what's challenging. How can we create a sense of urgency? And it has to be something we're passionate about. It matters because that's the motivators. These are the motivators of a neurodivergent person. We are wired differently. So if you're not neurodivergent and you have to deal with neurodivergent people in your work setting or in your family, then it's important to remember these things. Because I even have friends of mine who are not neurodivergent who do not understand this whole urgency thing, that I create urgency to get things done because that feels good to my neurology. It feels good to me to have a sense of urgency and a challenge about what I'm doing. With no kind of structured stress, if you will, the positive stress, then it's very easy to find a place of inertia and then things start working against me. And that happens for all different neurodivergent people, that without some sense of challenge or passion or interest, things become very dark sometimes. And we don't want to do that. We want to honor our wiring as a neurodivergent person, and we want to honor our experience as a neurodivergent person in our soul, in our emotions. And so there's a lot of different ways that we can start to take care of ourselves, because this world, our world, is not real sensitive when it comes to these differences. And in a lot of situations, doesn't seem to really care. So it matters that we care. It matters that we as leaders care. It matters that we're paying attention, even when others or the system in general is not paying attention. Because neurodivergent people, we're the mavericks, right? We are the people who go out there and we are the ones who make the noise, who make the changes, who help get things running in a way that's effective and works for people. So it's okay to be the squeaky wheel sometimes and pay attention to how you are doing it. So I keep in mind these 5 things all the time. And I ask myself, am I challenged enough? Where is my passion for whatever the thing is? Like this podcast and my whole Someone Gets Me experience and the work I do to help people feel understood, heard, motivated, cared about is a deep passion of mine. And so at times in my life, I've had non-neurodivergent people suggest that I abandon the Someone Gets Me idea and abandon the neurodivergent and gifted work that I do and just do something kind of simple. And I heard somebody just a couple of years ago say, well, you've paid your dues. You've done it for a long time. You've worked really hard. So now skate for the rest of your life. And I don't even know what that means, to just stop and do what? I like to have passion and challenge and novelty. I like to be interested in things. And I don't think I'll ever stop. I mean, that's when I even say that, when I tell you that somebody said that to me, I want to laugh. So here are some things we can do to take care of ourselves. Now, as I said, this is part 1, and part 2 will be coming shortly, where we will dive into some of these things more deeply. But the first thing that really matters for us is to remember that our wiring is not the same as how this world operates. So one of the big things I tell people to do is get off the screens. Don't be on your phone all the time. Read a book with real paper. You don't have to always have a screen in front of your face. If you have neurodivergent children, the recommendation usually is no more than 4 or 5 hours a week of screen time, because digging in the dirt and swinging and connecting with nature are how our souls develop. They don't develop through a screen. They don't develop through junk food. They develop through connecting with nature herself in ways that are meaningful. We can self-soothe by using weighted blankets or safe and sound protocol to help our vagus nerve, or humming. Humming is a brilliant thing to do. I teach a lot of the neurodivergent children and adolescents actually that I work with that humming helps keep the vagus nerve working properly and helping us stay regulated. And deep breathing is really important, learning how to actually fully take a breath. You know, when I was in high school, we all learned, especially the women, that, you know, we're teenage girls and it's like, oh, suck in your belly, suck in your belly. So whenever people would suck in their belly, they would inhale. So behaviorally, that's backwards. Inhaling and our belly going in is backwards. When we inhale, our belly should go out. So many people I work with have to learn how to let their body breathe properly because conditioning created this learned behavior that is counterproductive for a neurodivergent person. It's actually counterproductive for everybody. And so the other thing I want to talk about is your self-talk and your belief systems. That it matters how you talk to yourself. When you talk to yourself with judgment, that means assessing value. When you talk to yourself in a negative tone or in a demeaning tone or a self-deprecating tone, you are actually short-circuiting your wiring. It's not allowing your actual, authentic, real wiring to work in your favor. And so it disconnects you from your emotions, it disconnects you from your heart and your soul. And then many of the people who come to me when they first find me are stuck in this separation where they either feel everything or feel nothing, but it's not connected to how their mind and wiring are working because they've disconnected them. Now, the good news is we can reconnect you, but it takes a little bit of effort. It takes focus. It takes honoring your breath. It takes connecting to your essence in nature. It takes allowing yourself to create. I work with a lot of musicians and artists and creative people in all different kinds of ways. And creating is very, very valuable and very important to us. And so part of healing on any kind of separation of our wiring from our soul and our experiences has to do with allowing the creation process and the creative process to work through us. And we do that by breathing into a stretch, but breathing into any cool thing you want to create. As an adult, I learned quilting because it helps harmonize my brain. Like I get to do precision and I get to do color and I get to do textures. So it helps all parts of my brain and my wiring, along with the novelty and the challenge, because there's a lot of precision, in order to create something beautiful. And so it matches very well to my neurodivergent brain. So there's all kinds of things we can do. Now, until the next episode, I want you to think about this. I want you to think about how you fulfill your senses. How do you enjoy your sense of smell? How do you enjoy your sense of sight, like color, light, dark, those kinds of things? How do you enjoy your sense of sound, of hearing? Are there any sounds you love or sounds that repulse you? Like, how does that work for you? What volume do you like, right? And how about your sense of touch? Touching other things, touching you. Like I walk through stores and I have to touch everything, all the fabrics of all the clothes and I love the touch of granite or wood and different other textures. And if you see me with trees, I'll probably be putting my hand on the tree. So how do you enjoy the sense of touch? I know I had a friend with me recently and she's like, I can't stand tags in my clothes and I can't stand tags. That's that sense of touch. When it touches her skin, it bothers her. That's very common for neurodivergent people. So think about how you fulfill your senses, because where your senses are in your world and how you fulfill them helps bridge your wiring to your soul, helps remind you of your essence of who you really are, and allows your wiring for interest and challenge and passion to come alive. Now, in the work setting, some people, that I work with are working in situations where they're really having to navigate people who are unaware of neurodivergent things or simply don't care, or other people who are neurodivergent, but the other people don't know they're neurodivergent, so they don't know exactly how to handle it. So we have to learn how to navigate these waters in a way that serves us, reminding ourselves that not all the people around us get it. Not all the people around us get themselves. Not everybody's paying attention. So we want to allow like-minded people, the people who are aligned with us in these different ways, to be in our world. And we also want to learn how to set our inner and outer boundaries so that others who are not like-minded or for whatever reason do not understand or for whatever reason feel kind of staticky, to have a boundary, a place where they're not necessarily as close to us energetically as otherwise. So you see, there's all kinds of ways that we can care for our soul. We first care for our wiring by taking care of the part of us that reminds us that we're wired differently. And then we allow ourselves to connect our brain to our heart and allow all parts of us to come together for a great synergy. And so in part 2 of this Care for the Neurodivergent Soul, I'm going to go more deeply into specific things that we can do as neurodivergent people to support our daily life, our professional life, our family life, our love life. And so that episode and this one would be really good if you know another neurodivergent person to share it with them. Or if you are neurodivergent and other people on your team are, share it with your executive team. Or if you're the executive, share it with your team so that people understand that these things, these interests and novelty and challenge and urgency and passion are important to honor in order for us to be satisfied, successful, and happy. As always, I'm available. If you would like to speak with me about this topic or any other topic, simply go to my email address in the show notes or make a 30-minute call with me. That appointment and that link is all in the show notes for you. I'm here to serve you. I'm here to be your cheerleader in all the different ways. So I hope this episode has served you. Look forward to Care for the Neurodivergent Soul Part 2 next week. Until then, keep your face to the sun so the shadows fall behind you, because you are a rock star. You're here on purpose with a purpose. So go out there, let your light shine, and allow yourself to be awake, alert, alive, and full of your passion. Until the next episode, be well. Are you tired of searching for someone to understand you? Join our Facebook group, Someone Gets Me. In this group, you will be able to connect with others who are intense, sensitive, smart, and talented. I share my insights and teachings, and you can connect with others in a real, authentic, safe forum. So join us today. Someone Gets Me.